Hi everyone, this is Deborah. Welcome back. This is the next in the series of my travel junk journal. So let's go. I said last video that I was going to show you what I'm going to do with this particular piece of paper, and I have an idea for that. But in this video, I've got all of my signatures that we collected in the last video, and I want to say that if you want to do some things, now is the time to do them. Some things, well, most things you can do once your signatures are all sewn, but there are other things that you can't. Now, I could possibly do what I'm going to do today with this after I sew my signatures into the book, but I thought it might be easier before I sew them in. And the other thing I'm going to do with all of this lace is I'm going to run some lace down the edges of some of the pages. Got a whole heap of different sorts of lace and ribbons and things here. So if you're going to do this, you need to do it prior to. So I'm just taking out of the page, this is the map, and I probably will do some of this later, but I'll have a map that I then stick into the book rather than as one of the pages of the journal. What I want to do is I want to sew onto this paper where I went in Argentina and Chile. So in 1999 I took my parents, particularly my father, back to Argentina, or to Argentina for the first time for all of us, because my grandfather was born in a little town around here somewhere. It's not actually on the map, but down here in the bottom of Argentina, his whole family lived in this area, and that's where he was born. And he's not Spanish, he's actually Welsh, so he was born to Welsh parents. And the Welsh went to Argentina, amongst other places, to escape the persecution of the English, because the English didn't want them to retain their language and their culture. This is what I'm using. It's just ordinary tapestry thread. I'm using it in a brown colour. It's DMC 25. It's nothing special. I just picked it up at, wherever. The tapestry needle I'm using is a special tapestry needle. The reason is because it's got a big eye, and the tapestry thread is several strands, although you can pull the strands apart, but it'll go through the big eye. So I'm using a birch tapestry needle size 20 for those of you that want to know. And I've chosen a brown colour. I've got a few all in greens and browns, but I think this brown will actually stand out on the page. The other thing I've got is some little brads. I wanted to sew the journey, and I thought I'd leave the, the tails, for want of a better word, the tails of the actual thread just loose to show that that's kind of where we went in. So I've got some brads. I think I'll stick this the brads in after I've actually sewn it. And somewhere here I have a pair of scissors. There they are. I'm just going to start with a bit of thread and some. Now, this is Buenos Aires, which is obviously the capital of Argentina. So that's where we flew into, and then we flew down to this little town here, which is called Trelew. So I want to go between here and here. I'm just going to make a mark, punch a hole through Buenos Aires and a hole through Trelew, so I know where I'm going. I'm using my needle. I could use my pokey tool to punch the hole, but I've got my needle. And then we went up to San Carlos de Bariloche, which is here, right on this lake, punching a hole, and across to Portimont, which is here, and then up to Santiago, which is, just find the hole for Santiago, which is here, and then back to Buenos Aires. So I thought I would start by just coming, actually let me come in from the top. And I'm going to put a brad in there. So that's going to show that that's where the journey started. I'm just going to leave that bit loose, and then I'm going to come up again out from Buenos Aires, however you want to say it, and I'm just going to come down here to Trelew. So I don't know, because we flew, whether I should just do it in one lot or not. So maybe I will do it in one lot for the flight, in which case I'm going to just going to loosen that brad off a bit and wrap this thread around it. Into Trelew. Show that that's the flight, and I do have some little flight things, stickers and little bits of ephemera that I can put on there to indicate that we flew to Trelew. And then we went all around here. So we went to Porto Madryn, which is here. That's actually where, on the coast, where they landed. And the little town isn't actually on here, but I'm just going to put another piece here, so I just know I'm not going to find it on this tiny little map. Went to there, and then I'm going to come back in here. So if you were going to do something like this, as I said, you could wait until your book was all together. But I think it's just easier because I want to put another piece behind it so that I can keep it nice and steady. Put another little brad here too. These are in a mixed assortment of tones. These are the Tim Holtz little brads, and I'm really not worried about whether I pull out a copper one or a bronze one. I probably won't pull out any silver ones. If I do, I'll put it back like that one, because I think that's a bit too silver. And then back up into Trelew. And we flew over to San Carlos de Bariloche, Bariloche as it's known. And then from there, another brad in there. So this is just an idea of how you might show your travels, where you've been, on a map. People who don't know where these little places are. I don't think many people did things like this, but I guess it's because we were going to see where my pop was born and lived until he turned 10 when the family came to Australia. And then from there we took a boat. You can see probably, let me get it closer so you can see. Oh, hang on. Here it is here. You can see here in the Andes, so this is the Andes mountain range that runs down between Argentina and Chile. And you can see here there's all these lakes. And so how you get across the Andes, if you don't fly, is you catch boats and buses. So between the lakes you get on a bus and you catch a bus, and then after that you catch boats. So I'm just going to poke some holes to indicate we crossed the border, obviously. I'm just going to poke a few holes in here, and then we got to Portimont. Just because it's easier to come in from the back if I have a hole in there, so I know where I'm going. You can imagine doing this if your book was together. You'd be manipulating all of these pages. I'm just doing a simple back stitch, so I'm coming in through the front into the hole, and then I'm going back. Well, this is my version of a back stitch. Got kicked out of sewing when I was at school, so I don't really, you know, I'm all self-taught. Too disruptive I was, that's why they kicked me out. Just make sure it's not getting caught in the brads on the back. But taught myself to sew, and after I left school. Haven't really stopped since. There's Portamont. And another brad will go in here for Portamont. And then from Portamont we flew up to Santiago. I'm just going to come up near that brad somewhere. And then we flew up to Santiago, which is here. Brad on. This is it is a bit fiddly and a bit time consuming, but it's also about the memories, isn't it? It's a good way to remember and talk to your family about where you've been and what you've done. The next step is to put some thicker paper on the back to kind of stiffen the map page and make it so that it won't curl up like that. And that's going to be quite stiff now when you turn it over. If you want other things in your journal that are going to be in the sewn section, you need to put those in before. So I've got some lolly bags here. These are just from the cheap shop and super inexpensive. I folded part of that one in. I'm going to put that in there so that this side I'll be able to put something in, and I'm actually going to sew that signature in. So when I sew it, hand sew the signature in, which we'll get to, then it'll be in the actual journal itself. So I might grab another signature here, this one perhaps, and I'm going to put another one in. The next thing is ribbons and lace. If you're going to be using ribbons and or lace or fabric or anything, and you want to sew them on, you can of course glue them on afterwards, but if you want them sewn on, you need to do that prior. And again, as I said earlier, you can do that after, but you're going to have a whole book to contend with to put it through your machine. So if you just want to have them on now, just clip them and go and sew. Now I sew a fair bit on my journals and on my paper and things, and I have an old machine. It's a few years old. I bought myself a good machine for my quilting and everything else I do, but I have this other Janome and I just use it. I know a lot of people have asked in the past, what thread do you use, what needle do you use? Well, honestly, I just use whatever needle was in the machine the last time I used it. I think it's just a basic sewing needle, and I usually use a black thread, just a standard cotton thread, and I think that works. It's up to you really, but I'm going to put a number of bits of lace, and I've also got some seam binding here that I might put some of that off, and I've got some beautiful sari silk here which I'll use. Just ordered some more, so I'll use it now I've ordered more. And I've also got this old tea cloth which is super thin, and of course it's green. So I'm going to rip some of that up because I can't really use it. It's got threads and things on it, and it's very, very worn through. It must have been quite old, or it was made by a very thin fabric. It's all been hand stitched. You can see around the edge somebody has hand stitched that. So I'm going to have to try and keep some of that and put it in the book, I think, because it's too beautiful. So I'm just going to cut it and rip it. You know, there you go. Don't be afraid of ripping things up or cutting things up. I know a lot of people are worried about that, destroying things, but you're just giving them a new life. You're not really destroying them, are you? But I am going to cut that beautiful hand stitch binding off. So I want some of that in my journal for sure. So here's the results of my sewing. I've just gone through and put some lace on some of the pages, not all of them. You can leave these threads hanging if you want. It's up to you. This doesn't mean this is all the sewing that I'll be doing on these pages, because I will do some more, but I just wanted to show you that if you want to sew down the edges of your page, you're better off to do it prior to putting your journal together. Just going to snip that little bit off there. Add some more here. This one. So there you go, it's all ready to put together, I think. So the next time I do the video, which should be for next week, will be for next week, I will show you how to sew your signature. So I hope you'll join me then, and I hope you've enjoyed the video today. And if you have, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know if you've got any questions or if there's anything in particular that you would like me to show you. And I'll catch you next time. This is Deborah. Cheers.